Professors of Reddit, who was the dumbest student you ever had and what was so dumb about them? May or may not be dumb, but my friend and I went to her uncle's house, which had this piece of paper framed and put on the wall. It was a 0/20ths on a true or false quiz. Her uncle was a professor and was just too impressed by such an achievement that he had to put it in his home. A student in my economics class started his final essay with this: "We are all familiar with the country, Africa, yet at the same time we know little about them. All we know is that it is hot there, African Americans live there and they are really poor." This begs the question, why is Africa that poor? It was just so jam-packed with stupid I had to stop grading for 24 hours. Edit. For the record, this was indeed a college student. Happened in the first week of a college anthropology course. Prof. Let's list a few basic differences between modern humans and animals. Student. We have a heartbeat. I don't know if this qualifies as dumb or is closer to stupid, but I had a student who didn't show up for class regularly, and her grade was going to be a C, maybe a D depending on her final exam. What made her dumb, however, was how she tried to cheat on the final exam. She reached down into her bag and took out her phone, put it on the desk, typed something into it, looked at the test, looked at her phone, looked back at her test, rechecked her phone, then answered whatever question she was looking up just to make sure. I let her do it one more time. I was watching her the whole time, and she was completely oblivious to it. She got an F. I didn't believe any student was dumb. She may only have needed the right motivation until I met RJ. RJ was dumb. RJ didn't realize that the chicken we eat was the same as the animal. RJ was 21 at the time. I had a student who wrote an art history paper about Leonard da Vinci. Didn't even run that sucker through a spell check or anything. Referred to him as that throughout the entire paper. Thanks to everyone who pointed out that I couldn't spell in my post about spelling things wrong. As a GA teaching freshman English, I had a couple instances of cheating that left me speechless. First, my university uses an online plagiarism checker and the students know this. With one student, over half of his essay was copied from a website. He looked genuinely shocked when I called him out on it, and then told me that his mother wrote the paper for him. I explained that his mother writing his paper was also cheating. Then he asked if he could get credit for the half that wasn't from a website. Another time, the students had to analyze a movie showing how it used the hero's journey as plot structure. This was an easy assignment seeing as how nearly every modern movie uses this structure. The student copied the Wikipedia summary of Aladdin word for word, and he denied doing it. He argued it was a coincidence that his entire essay was the exact same as Wikipedia's. One of my students told me he was going to be 21 when he graduated high school. I asked him why. He explained that he ages 2 years every year. He is 15 turning 16, so that is 2 years. He is probably right that he will not graduate HS till age 21, but not for the reason he mentioned. Lol. One of my husband's colleagues said a kid came up to him after an exam and said, "I didn't know the answers to the questions you asked on the test, so I made up my own questions and answered them." The professor said, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and when I go to lunch, I'm going to tell all my friends." I had a student plagiarize on the final exam. It was a take-home essay short answer exam. They knew to cite any sources, and to put it in their own words. The kicker, this particularly bright bulb plagiarized me. The professor, she tried to pass off my words as her own. Oi. Edit. Well, this is by a factor of a whole bunch. I am a qualitative researcher. Numbers are not my jam. My most voted comment. To address a few common questions. 1. This student copied directly off of class materials I had provided and given no other analysis or work at all. They did not cite their work either. I had instructed them to cite everything, and even given them examples of how to cite the materials I gave them, and, more to the point, they did not show me they understood the material. They showed me they could copy-paste. I was teaching educational psychology and it was important that they show me their understanding. 2. They did not fail the course for this reason. I do not recall their final grade. I tossed it up to my department head and we decided they would not get any credit for the questions they copied, but everything else would be graded normally. I then wrote them a long email explaining why what they did was not acceptable and to not do it again. 3. To the one who told me to eat a dick. My husband quite enjoyed it the other night when I did so. So insult failed? I didn't have any particularly dumb student, also not a professor, but a graduate teaching assistant. But I did mark one essay that began so eloquently with "Do we born with intelligent?" Edit, as an addendum, because I still find this story hilarious. The second sentence was, "How our cognitive is developed." One of my fellow PhD student marked an essay once which came in at 2 pages. It was a 6-page limit, and half of the essay. So when Page discussed Mowgli from the Disney animated version of The Jungle Book, the topic was developmental psychology. I saw some amazingly bad attempts at plagiarism in my day. These included 1. Plagiarizing from an article in a journal the professor edited. This was a grad student. 2. Plagiarizing from the same source as another student in the same class. First hit on Google is not your friend. 3. Turning in a sophomore lit survey paper referring to a poet's use of hendecasyllabics. I have a doctoral degree and I had to look that one up. Googled author's name plus hendecasyllabics and there was the paper. Only thing the student contributed was her name. 4. When caught red-handed, insisting tearfully that she didn't plagiarize. Her roommate wrote the paper for her, and her roommate was the dirty plagiarist. I was literally speechless for a moment while I grappled with this line of reasoning. Bonus points. This was Ms. Hendecasyllabics. I once had a girl in my class ask why meteors always fall into craters. For context, this was journalism degree and we were talking about libel laws. This girl did not pass. I'm not the professor, but I did talk to her about this student at the time. I was taking an online class. Each week we had to answer in a discussion board, in our own words, about whatever the topic was. The answers were all public. To inspire discussion, I researched, took my time writing out the answers. Even though our names showed up, I still signed my name at the end of it. Usually an hour or 2 after I post my stuff, a classmate would post hers too. Without fail, she would copy and paste what I wrote and claimed it as her answer to. It was clear she never bothered to read it either because she kept my name at the end of it. After seeing this happen over 2 weeks, I emailed our professor and voiced my complaint. She emailed me back and said it's already been noticed by her. The following week, that classmate was no longer on the class roster. I was always curious who would pay that kind of money just to steal answers and not bother to learn. She wasn't young either. We had profile pages. She was older than me by at least 20 years. Was just bizarre and dumb. Actually one of the smarter kids in my class. Ethics, awareness of social norms. Not so much. He sent me an email after the semester ended, asking if I'd mind telling my next semester class that his digital textbook was available for sale. Oh, and that it's a PDF, so if multiple people want it, he can sell them all copies. I responded that I admire his entrepreneurial spirit, but it probably wasn't a good idea to solicit his professor's help in starting a literacy-based book-selling business. I'm not a professor but a fellow student I was paired with on 4th-year pharmacy school rotations was abysmally stupid. Our student room that 6 of us would do our assignments and projects in at the hospital was filled with a combination of meme posters created for our preceptor and motivational posters. Well, one poster was of whales breaching the ocean. Well, this one guy, we will call him M, blurts out one quiet afternoon, "That poster is so fucking stupid. Why are whales at the top of the water? They don't breathe there." Being bored myself, I indulge him and ask what he meant, to which he responded that whales were fish and thus don't breathe air, they breathe water. This piqued everyone else's interest now, and we tell him that whales are mammals just like dolphins are. He disagrees, saying that anything that swims in the water is a fish. Being the smart ass that I can be sometimes, I ask him what a penguin is then. He tells us that penguins are just so stupid because they don't realize that they can fly and that all birds fly. I bring up ostriches as an example of a bird that does and fly, and he replies that those are just bird-like mammals. What are bats then? He replies that they are clearly birds. This goes round and around for about 15 minutes until another fellow pharmacy student asks him how he based basic biology or comparative anatomy, both requirements for pharmacy school. He informs us that we are the idiots for actually taking the class, that he took them online and he just paid his sister, who was in med school at the time, to take the assignments and exams for him. It seems like he was trolling us, right? No. This connected so many dots for us, and was known for being just genuinely unintelligent and would ask the most basic questions like what Benadryl is used for at the end of a lecture about allergy medication that just covered it. Our entire class of 200-ish future pharmacists were always puzzled by how he made it into our school. Edit. Here are some more stories about him for those that don't want to look through my comments. He and I were supposed to be reviewing patient charts for our ICU rounds. Instead, he was shopping for a private plane he intended to buy after graduation. Why? He planned to work in a state that was in need of pharmacists but live elsewhere and commute my plane, and was ejected from a following rotation site for sitting on a physician car and smoking on a non-smoking hospital campus 3 times. The first 2 times I was told the physician was nice about it. The third time he was actually banned from the hospital grounds and failed the rotation, and walked across stage with us but didn't get a diploma that day, due at least to his failing in the above story. This caused drama in our graduating class as we collectively felt that if he was and graduating he shouldn't be walking with us, especially since we all knew what happened at his rotation site and he had been reported numerous times for attempting to cheat during exams. Group workshops with him consisted of him shopping online for leather jackets and motorcycles. Our university, however, let him walk under the reasoning that he paid his tuition and his family was there to see him walk and thus he was entitled to do so. About a week after graduation, and posted to our class Facebook group if there was some way he could sue our university or the federal government loan holders to forgive his loan, as he decided he no longer wanted to be a pharmacist and would like essentially return his education. Since a lot of pharmacists are posting it, a small world as we are all told, I'm sure at least one of you know exactly who I'm talking about.